There I stood, draped in liquid gold, at the top of the grand staircase as every head in the ballroom turned toward me. The champagne glasses froze midair. Conversations died mid-sentence, and Victoria Blackwood, the woman who had once destroyed me with nothing but a glance and a whispered insult, dropped her crystal flute, shattering it across the marble floor. No one moved to clean it up. No one could move at all. But what they didn't know was that I had died once before, right here in this very room, wearing a pathetic excuse for a gown that I'd saved 3 paychecks to afford. What they didn't know was that I remembered everything. My name is Sophie Lynn, and death gave me the greatest gift of all, a second chance. When I woke up 5 years earlier, back in my 23-year-old body with all my memories intact, I made myself a promise. I would let them mock me one last time before I showed them exactly who I could become. I stood back, letting the shadows near the entrance swallow me whole across the plush carpet of the grand ballroom. Victoria was living a moment I remembered all too well. She was trying on her signature look, a sweep of crimson silk that shimmered under the chandeliers. My nemesis, the one who'd worn that exact dress the night she ensured my complete social destruction in my first life, right before disaster struck. Victoria spun in front of her sycophantic friends, a dazzling smile plastered on her face. "Diane, get a picture, isn't it perfect?" she cooed. Her friend obliged, her phone clicking away. "Oh, Victoria, honey, you look stunning. Absolutely breathtaking." Neither of them knew. They didn't know this wasn't the first time I'd seen Victoria in that dress. They didn't know I remembered the sticky, sweet splash of champagne soaking into my own discount rack gown just minutes before the gala photos were supposed to happen. They didn't know I remembered Victoria's fake gasp, her mumbled, "Oops, clumsy me." They certainly didn't know I remembered her later, stealing my design portfolio and presenting it as her own to her father's fashion house, leaving me heartbroken and confused. Victoria had a talent for taking things that were mine, eventually stripping away everything I cared about. But this time was different. I felt the crisp edge of a receipt tucked safely inside my clutch. It was for a different dress, a golden one, bought weeks ago from a small design atelier in Milan far from here. A dress Victoria knew nothing about. Victoria caught my eye in the mirror, her smile faltering just a fraction. "You're not upset I found it first, are you, Soph? We have similar taste, I guess," she said, gesturing to the plain beige sheath I was wearing to the pre-gala luncheon. I forced a neutral expression, stepping out of the shadows. "Take it," I said, my voice even. "Honestly, Victoria, it suits you perfectly." And it did. It suited the girl who lived for the spotlight, even if she had to snatch it from someone else. I knew exactly how tonight and tomorrow's gala would unfold. This time, I was ready. Back home, the familiar weight of my apartment settled around me. I bypassed the living room, where my roommate was likely still swooning over photos of Victoria, and headed straight to my bedroom. My room felt like the only safe space, a sanctuary holding secrets they couldn't touch. I pulled out a sleek, black leather journal from under my mattress. It wasn't just a diary. It was a record, a map of the past I was determined not to repeat. My fingers traced the entries, words written in hurried, sometimes tear-blurred ink from the early days after my rebirth. Page after page detailed Victoria's betrayals, small and large. Borrowed designs returned stained, secrets whispered to the wrong people, lies told to make herself look better. Then there was Harrison Reed, Victoria's fiancé. His betrayal cut almost as deep. In my past life, he'd briefly shown interest in my work before dismissing it when Victoria demanded his loyalty. The memory still stung. A shiver ran down my spine as I flipped to the entry detailing the end of my first life. Gala night. Rain slicked the roads. I'd found Victoria presenting my designs as her own to her father and his investors. Blinded by tears and rage, I'd run, jumped into my car, ignoring the calls and texts. The rain was a curtain, the road a blur, then screeching tires, a sickening crunch of metal and darkness. Waking up 5 years earlier, with all memories intact, was both a curse and a second chance. Dinner. My roommate's call echoed through the apartment, pulling me from the darkness of the journal. In the kitchen, the atmosphere was thick with Victoria's success. My roommate chatted excitedly about her. Apparently, her father is naming her creative director next month, and Harrison Reed is totally backing her. They're like fashion's next power couple. I kept my face smooth, subtly sliding my phone out, resting it on my lap, and pressed record. Her words, casually cruel, were now saved evidence. Not for a big reveal. Not yet. Just for me, a reminder. Fashion Week events the next day were another stage for the same play. I saw Harrison leaning against Victoria's display, his familiar charming smile directed solely at her. In my past life, he'd been briefly interested in my concepts, before Victoria intervened. Now, he was just the handsome investor I supposedly had a professional crush on, and Victoria was working her magic. The old me would have felt a pang of jealousy, maybe even cried in the restroom. The new me walked right up to them. "Hey," I said, injecting a confidence I didn't entirely feel but knew how to fake. "Victoria, Harrison, I was thinking about the new sustainable textiles coming out of Japan. Maybe we could discuss them over coffee? I have some interesting supplier contacts." Harrison looked surprised, then pleased. "Yeah, sounds good actually. I've been looking into sustainable investments." Victoria narrowed her eyes slightly, probably wondering why I wasn't acting hurt or jealous. "Sure," she agreed, though her tone was wary. "Perfect. Let them wonder. Let them think I was trying to get closer to the industry's inner circle. Let the seeds of my plan take root." Later, my former design school classmate May caught up with me, her expression earnest. "Hey, can I talk to you for a sec?" "Sure, May. What's up?" She glanced around, lowering her voice. "Look, I know it's none of my business, but be careful with Victoria. I think she's really going after your portfolio. I saw her taking pictures of your sketches at the design showcase." She looked genuinely concerned, playing the part of the loyal friend, the part she'd abandoned before, sharing my designs with Victoria for a chance at an internship. Instead of dissolving into gratitude or tears like I might have before, I gave her a casual smile. "Thanks for the heads up, May. I appreciate you looking out for me." Then, shifting gears smoothly, I added, "So, how's that application for Parsons going? Wasn't your interview last week?" Her face went pale just for a second, but I caught it. The interview she'd bragged about endlessly in our past life, the one I later found out she'd never actually secured. Yeah, almost done," she stammered. "Cool," I continued, keeping my tone light and friendly. "My cousin David works in admissions there, you know. Small world, right? Maybe he'll even read your application." May swallowed hard, her eyes darting away. "Oh, wow. Yeah, small world," she mumbled, made an excuse, and hurried off. Good. Let her sweat. Let them all start to feel a little less comfortable in the predictable world they thought they controlled. A few days later, I came home to find my design portfolio missing from my desk. Panic, cold and familiar, tried to grip me, but I pushed it down. I knew who had it. I walked quietly down the hall to the shared workspace in our apartment building. The door was slightly ajar. Peeking in, I saw Victoria sitting at a table, my portfolio open in front of her. She was photographing something intently. My latest designs. My heart pounded, but not with fear this time. It was a cold, calculating rhythm. I waited until she got up and went to the coffee machine, then slipped into the room. Sure enough, my designs were spread out and she was sending photos to someone, likely her father. The old me would have stormed in, yelling, crying, demanding an explanation. The new me simply sat down. plugged in a tiny USB drive I now carried everywhere, and quickly copied the contents of her open laptop. It took less than a minute. Then I closed everything, wiped the table clean of my fingerprints, and shut the portfolio. I placed it back on the table exactly where she left it and slipped out undetected. When she came back humming with her coffee, she didn't notice a thing. That night, at dinner with some industry people, one of Victoria's father's assistants dropped the bomb I knew was coming, though the timing was slightly different this life. "Sophie," he began, setting down his fork with unusual seriousness, "Mr. Blackwood reviewed your portfolio submission and, unfortunately, doesn't feel your aesthetic aligns with the house. Victoria's collection, however, showed remarkable promise." Victoria shot me a look across the table. It wasn't subtle, it was pure, unadulterated triumph. She thought she had it in the bag. Her designs, my designs, had impressed her father, and she had the industry firmly in her corner. I felt the familiar sting of being deemed secondary, disposable. But this time, I didn't let it show. I simply murmured, "Oh, okay, thanks for letting me know." I picked up my salad, feigning disappointment, then excused myself. "I need to grab something from my bag." In the restroom, hidden from view, I pulled a thick envelope from my purse. Inside was an acceptance letter, not from Blackwood Fashion House, but from a prestigious, highly competitive design program in Paris. A program I hadn't even considered in my past life. This time, fueled by the knowledge of how things could turn out, I'd secretly worked on a portfolio for months, and attached to the acceptance was a notification of a full scholarship and apprenticeship under Madame Leroux, the legendary designer, something Victoria couldn't control or redirect. I tucked it back into my purse before returning to the table, my expression carefully neutral. The stage was set. Tomorrow night was the annual Blackwood Gala, where Victoria had destroyed me in my previous life. This time, everything would be different. Over the next week, I monitored the email logs remotely through the spyware I'd installed on Victoria's laptop. Just as I suspected, Victoria tweaked a few sentences in my designer statement, changed the collection name, and submitted it as her own to her father's company. The same company that had rejected me just days earlier. My blood boiled, but I didn't make a move against her directly. Instead, I scheduled a meeting with Madame Leroux, who was in town for Fashion Week. "Madame Leroux," I started, feigning slight confusion after we discussed my Paris acceptance. I had a quick, kind of weird question. I browsed some designer portfolios at a showcase the other day, and I saw a collection that felt really familiar. Like, really familiar, almost identical to the signature pieces I workshopped in your masterclass last month. Madame Leroux frowned. "Oh, that's concerning. Do you remember whose collection it was?" "I didn't save the designer's name, unfortunately," I lied smoothly, "but it was submitted under Blackwood's new talent search. I just thought it was strange. Probably just a coincidence, right?" Her eyes sharpened. Maybe, or maybe not. Plagiarism is a serious issue in our industry, especially with emerging designers. Thanks for bringing it to my attention. I knew Madame Leroux was also on the International Design Council and had connections with major fashion houses worldwide, including Blackwood's foreign investors. The seed was planted. The industry gala arrived a week later. I sat calmly watching Victoria receive accolades for her innovative use of sustainable textiles, my innovative use of sustainable textiles, the same ones I'd mentioned to Harrison. Then, the CEO of the Asia Pacific Fashion Council stepped up to announce the major fellowship awards. And the recipient of this year's Emerging Designer Fellowship, which comes with a significant grant and mentorship opportunity, he announced, pausing for dramatic effect, goes to Sophie Lynn. My name, not Victoria's. A ripple of surprise went through the crowd as I walked toward the stage, trying to look suitably humble and shocked. I scanned the audience and saw Madame Leroux leaning over, whispering something to Mr. Blackwood, who was frowning deeply and looking thoughtfully towards his daughter. Victoria had gone rigid in her seat. Later that evening, Harrison caught me by the bar. "Hey, Sophie, congratulations, that's a huge honour." "Thanks, Harrison. I'm still processing it, honestly." He hesitated, then lowered his voice. "Look, I have to ask. Those Japanese textile techniques in your portfolio. Victoria showed me something very similar last week. Said it was her original concept. I took a calculated risk." "Oh, that's interesting. Those have been part of my signature style for over a year now. I even have the dated sketches and material samples." I paused. "Actually, I've been developing them since before my car accident." "Car accident?" He looked confused. "Oh, it was just a bad dream I had," I backpedaled smoothly. "Felt so real, I sometimes talk about it like it happened. Weird, right? Anyway, about those textiles. I changed the subject, but the seed of doubt was planted." Harrison looked thoughtful for the rest of our conversation. The predictable explosion came Monday after the gala. Victoria cornered me at a cafe where I was sketching. Her face was flushed with anger. "What have you been telling people, Sophie? What lies are you spreading about me?" I didn't raise my voice. I didn't get defensive. I simply unlocked my phone, pulled up the screenshots from her laptop showing my designs under her name in her father's company portfolio, and held it out for her to see. "Lies, Victoria?" I asked softly. "Or are we talking about these?" The colour drained from her face. Her eyes darted around, terrified someone might see. "Where? How did you get that?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "Does it matter? Look, I don't want to cause trouble. Maybe we should just sit down with your father and talk this through. Figure out what happened." Panic flared in her eyes. "No, don't. Please, Sophie." She grabbed my arm. Okay. I'll back off completely. I'll tell Dad I want to go in a different direction with my collection. Just don't tell him, please." I pulled my arm away gently. "I just want us all to get along, Victoria. No drama." I gave her a small, tight smile. "Let's just forget about it, okay?" I walked away, leaving her standing there shaking. She looked utterly bewildered, thrown off balance by my lack of hysterics, my quiet control. Round 1, complete. She was rattled, and I had leverage she never expected. The relative peace didn't last long. A few weeks later, I logged into the industry database to check the status of a textile shipment I'd ordered for my fellowship project. My breath caught. My password had been changed, and a significant chunk of my supply chain contacts had been reassigned to Blackwood Designs, specifically to Victoria's new collection. I felt a surge of the old helpless anger, but quickly tamped it down. Confronting Victoria would lead to denials, excuses, maybe even accusations that I was being paranoid. Instead, I printed out the transaction records and screenshots, not just these recent ones, but I dug deeper, finding a systematic pattern of my contacts and resources being quietly diverted over the past few months. Money moved from my fellowship account to cover Victoria's material orders, even evidence that she'd been accessing my cloud storage. Armed with a folder full of evidence, I called Harrison. We met for coffee near his office. "Harrison," I began, trying to sound more hesitant than I felt. "I didn't want to bother you, but I noticed some irregularities with my fellowship resources." I laid out the printouts on the small table between us. "Someone has been diverting my supplier contacts to Blackwood, specifically to Victoria's collection." He scanned the papers, his brow furrowing deeper with each page. The easygoing demeanour vanished, replaced by a quiet fury I'd rarely seen. "She transferred your supplier exclusives without permission? And used fellowship funds?" He pointed at a line item for Victoria's material order. "This is a serious breach of industry ethics." "I didn't know what to do," I murmured, looking down at my coffee cup, playing the part of the wronged, uncertain designer. The fellowship committee might think I'm being careless with their investment. He was silent for a long moment, his jaw tight. This stops now, he said finally, his voice firm. We're going to the committee this afternoon. We'll clarify everything and make sure your resources are protected. Your designs are brilliant, Sophie, and I'm not letting this sabotage your opportunity. He looked genuinely angry, protective even. It was a side of him I hadn't seen in my previous life. Maybe this rebirth wasn't just about revenge, but also about rebuilding bridges I hadn't known how to cross before. Back in my apartment, a new idea sparked. That evening, when I knew Victoria might be checking my cloud storage again, I deliberately left a folder open. It displayed the web page for an exclusive atelier in Paris, showcasing their latest high-end fabrics. Front and centre was the material, a breathtaking gold lame with a revolutionary new weave that caught light like nothing else on the market. A fabric I'd already purchased with my fellowship grant and hidden away. As expected, when I checked my cloud access logs later, Victoria had viewed the folder. She had a smirk on her face when I saw her at an industry mixer the next day. "Dreaming big, Soph," she scoffed, gesturing towards her phone where she'd saved the fabric details. "That gold thing? Please, like you could ever afford that? And even if you could, you wouldn't know how to make it work with your limited vision." I just shrugged. "It's gorgeous, isn't it?" Let her think it was an impossible dream. The whispers started soon after. I saw Victoria and her inner circle huddled together at a design showcase, heads close, glancing my way occasionally. They fell silent when I walked past their display. The old me would have felt paranoia creeping in. The new me felt a detached curiosity. Later, I casually approached a junior designer from Blackwood's team. "Hey, exciting news," I said brightly. "You know my friend Elise from Vogue? She got an assignment to cover the gala for their main fashion spread next month. She's going to be photographing all the designers' outfits, focusing on innovative materials." The junior designer exchanged a quick, uneasy look with another team member who was standing nearby, pretending not to listen. "Oh, cool," she mumbled. "Good. Let them know that any accidents involving my potential gala dress might just be caught on camera for the whole industry to see." My caution was justified. A few days later, using a voice recording app on my phone left strategically forgotten near the lounge at Blackwood Studio, I caught Victoria's unmistakable voice. "Gold. Literally, just a little spill, Diane," Victoria was saying. "Like, maybe red wine. It stains terribly, especially on something light-coloured like gold. If she actually gets that ridiculous fabric, we have to be ready." "Victoria, be careful," Diane warned, but there was a distinct lack of disapproval in her voice. "We don't want actual trouble, but yes, it would be unfortunate if something happened to ruin such an extravagant material. Maybe she'd learn a lesson about staying in her lane." My hand didn't even tremble as I stopped the recording. "Predictable. Pathetic, even." I immediately called my fabric supplier. "Hi, this is Sophie Lynn. I need to make a change to my pickup date for order hash SL742. Can I actually leave the gold lame with you until the morning of the gala? And could you possibly store it in your secure area until then?" "Yes, thank you so much." The week before the gala arrived like a ticking clock. Victoria, suddenly helpful, offered to pick up some design samples for me on her way to the Blackwood offices. "I know you're busy with fellowship preparations, Sophie," she said sweetly. "And isn't your special fabric supposed to be ready today?" "Oh, Victoria, that's so thoughtful," I replied, matching her saccharine tone. "But the gold lame isn't there. I decided to get it delivered closer to the event. The package just has some pattern templates I needed done." I handed her the receipt for the bag containing exactly that. Basic paper templates. Her smile faltered for just a second before she recovered. Harrison found me working in my studio again later that day. So, the gala? He started, leaning against my work table. I heard you're making something special. Actually, I decided to go with something unexpected this year, I said, looking up from my sketch. He looked genuinely surprised. Really? Why? Just want to make a statement. No drama, though, I added, a small smile playing on my lips. I am kind of looking forward to making an entrance. His eyes held mine for a moment longer than necessary. Yeah, I bet you will. From the corner of my eye, I saw Victoria watching us from the hallway, her face tight with unmistakable jealousy. The night before the gala, my phone buzzed with a text from a fellow designer. Hey, just heard Victoria telling everyone the best placement at the gala's designer showcase is reserved exclusively for Blackwood family, and specifically not to let you anywhere near the main atrium. So they were trying to sideline me again, just like last time. Instead of feeling hurt or angry, I felt amused. Did they really think that would stop me? I picked up my phone and made a call. Not to confront Victoria, not to plead with the organisers. I called Madame Leroux. Madame Leroux? Sophie Lynn here. Yes, I am doing well, thank you. Listen, I was hoping to arrange a little surprise for the gala tomorrow night. Could I possibly showcase my piece alongside your collection in the VIP section? Sort of a preview of our upcoming collaboration? She chuckled. Anything for my new protégé. Consider it done, Sophie. Perfect. Let Victoria have her little exclusive placement. I'd be in an even more prestigious location, directly under the gala's main chandelier, right where everyone would see me. The stage was set. Gala morning dawned bright and clear. While Victoria and her entourage fussed over preparations at the Blackwood atelier, the same one where whispers and gossip spread like wildfire, I slipped out early. My destination? A high-end spa and salon in the neighbouring, much wealthier district where no one knew my name or the small-time industry drama I'd been embroiled in. Hours later, pampered and polished, I felt like a different person. Calm, centred, ready. Victoria called while I was having my makeup professionally done. Sophie, where are you? Everyone's almost ready for the pre-gala press. Dad wanted to take some industry photos before we all left. Her voice was tight with barely concealed irritation. She wasn't concerned about my absence. She wanted to ensure I looked inferior by comparison in any group shots. Sorry, Victoria, got held up. Don't worry about me. I have my own arrangements for arrival. I'll see you at the venue right on time. I hung up before she could argue. Later, peeking from my apartment window, I watched Victoria leave for the venue. She was wearing the crimson silk dress, looking exactly like the ghost of my past life. Her father, appearing slightly impatient, as always, around her over-dramatic preparations, fussed with his bow tie while Victoria preened for some early photos with a few industry photographers. For the first time all day, a genuine smile touched my lips. Everything was falling into place just as I'd envisioned. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Black sedan waiting at the end of the block as arranged, Miss Lynn. Madame Leroux sends her regards. Miss Lynn. Not Sophie. It still felt unreal because the biggest secret, the one I hadn't even written in my journal, wasn't just about a dress. It was about her. Madame Leroux, the legendary designer whose masterclass had changed everything. In my previous life, I'd been too intimidated to even apply. But after my rebirth, haunted by the past and uncertain of the future, I had taken a chance. I found her email address, sent a simple, heartfelt portfolio with a note about my unique vision, and included a few sketches of my most innovative concepts. I hadn't expected a reply, but she had responded. Cautiously at first, then with growing enthusiasm. We'd exchanged emails, then phone calls, then even a few discreet meetings when I claimed to be at industry research events. She saw something in me, she'd said. Something other houses had overlooked. Resilience, innovation, a quiet dignity that reminded her, strangely, of herself when she was starting out. She had offered help, resources, connections, asking only for discretion until I was ready to debut under her mentorship. Now it was time. I took a deep breath and stepped out of my apartment. The dress felt like liquid gold against my skin, catching the early evening sun streaming through the hall windows. It wasn't just beautiful. It felt like armor, like a statement. My Uber driver was waiting downstairs, looking slightly impatient until he saw me descending the stairs. His jaw literally dropped. "Wow!" He finally managed, his voice thick with surprise. "You look incredible!" The ride to the gala venue was quiet. I was lost in thought as we pulled up to the historic art museum, where Blackwood hosted their annual event. I saw the black sedan Madame Leroux had sent parked discreetly down the street. A distinguished man in a sharp suit stepped out as my car stopped. "Marcus, Madame Leroux's head of security," he murmured, opening my door. "Everything is ready, Miss Lynn. Security has cleared a path. The photographers are in position." I nodded my thanks as I stepped out of the car. The scene unfolded exactly as planned. Security personnel subtly held back the throng of industry people crowding the entrance. Flashes erupted, not phone cameras, but professional DSLRs, wielded by photographers I didn't recognize, clearly hired for this moment. A confused murmur spread through the crowd. Who was this? Why the special treatment? Then I stepped fully into the light spilling from the venue entrance. The gold dress seemed to ignite, shimmering, flowing, utterly captivating. The revolutionary fabric caught and amplified every ray of light, creating an almost ethereal glow. Whispers turned to gasps. Phones were definitely out now, recording. The professional photographers moved with me, capturing every angle as Marcus escorted me towards the doors, creating an instant social media moment that would eclipse anything Victoria had planned. Inside, the music seemed to stutter. Conversations died. Everyone turned to stare. And there, standing by the champagne fountain, the irony wasn't lost on me, was Victoria. Her crimson dress, which had looked so sophisticated earlier, now seemed ordinary, mass-produced, dull. She was frozen, her hand halfway to a crystal flute, her face a mask of shock and disbelief. The glass slipped from her fingers, shattering across the marble floor. No one moved to clean it up. No one could move at all. Harrison, looking handsome in his tuxedo, started moving towards me, an expression of genuine admiration on his face. But before he could reach me, Madame Leroux herself stepped smoothly into his path. "Miss Lynn, Sophie," the legendary designer inquired, extending a hand. "Let me introduce you to the Vogue editorial team. They're quite fascinated by your innovative use of biomimetic textiles." She effectively blocked Harrison, drawing me into a conversation about sustainable fashion and next-generation materials, completely ignoring the industry drama swirling around us. After a few minutes, excusing myself politely from Madame Leroux, I finally approached Victoria. I smiled. A genuine, uncomplicated smile. "Victoria," I said, my voice calm and kind, "that dress really does look beautiful on you." I picked up a clean champagne flute from a nearby tray and offered it to her. "Drink?" She just stared at me, completely bewildered by my lack of gloating, my unexpected kindness. Leaving her there utterly confused, I moved through the room, greeting designers and industry leaders who hadn't given me a second glance before tonight. Laughing and chatting as if this was just any other gala. May appeared at my elbow, looking awkward and contrite. "Sophie, hey, look, I wanted to apologise for being distant lately. I was stupid and jealous." "Thank you, May," I said graciously, accepting her apology without dwelling on it. "Actually, there's someone I'd like you to meet." I gestured to a strikingly dressed woman standing nearby, observing the scene with amused detachment. "May, this is Elise Fontaine from Vogue. Elise May is a really talented textile artist. Elise Fontaine, an internationally respected fashion editor, though few here would likely recognise her out of context, smiled warmly at May. Textile artist? Excellent. Always looking for fresh talent. Perhaps you could send me some samples. May looked like she might faint. Just then, Mr. Blackwood bustled over, wearing his CEO smile though his eyes were calculating. He had clearly come to assess the situation, and the woman who was suddenly the centre of attention at his own gala. His eyes scanned me from head to toe, lingering on the revolutionary gold fabric. Miss Lynn, isn't it? I believe we met briefly at the portfolio review. The one where he'd rejected me in favour of Victoria's stolen designs. Yes, Mr. Blackwood. Lovely to see you again. That material, he said, gesturing to my dress. Extraordinary. I don't believe I've seen anything quite like it before. Thank you, I replied simply. It's a new biomimetic weave. It actually changes reflective properties under different lighting conditions. Fascinating, he murmured, clearly reassessing my potential value to his company. Perhaps we should revisit your portfolio. Victoria mentioned you two have been collaborating. Before I could respond, the real showstopper arrived. The doors opened again, and Madame Leroux's entire entourage swept in, models wearing key pieces from her next collection. The remaining chatter in the room died completely as everyone turned to watch the impromptu showcase. Then Madame Leroux herself stepped forward, commanding the room's attention with nothing more than her presence. Ladies and gentlemen, she announced, her voice carrying clearly in the sudden silence, I'd like to formally introduce you to the newest designer under my personal mentorship and the creative force behind our upcoming diffusion line. She turned to me, extending her hand. Sophie Lynn, come join us, my dear. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Victoria looked faint. Mr. Blackwood's smile froze on his face. Walking to join Madame Leroux felt like floating. This wasn't just a moment of triumph. It was the birth of my new life, my true future. Sophie's revolutionary work with sustainable biomimetic textiles, Madame Leroux continued, represents the future of fashion, a future where innovation and responsibility coexist beautifully. She gestured to my dress. This gold lame is just the beginning, a fabric that reflects light like natural butterfly wings, yet is made entirely from reclaimed materials. No new petroleum products, no microplastics, just pure innovation. Victoria, recovering slightly, tried to push forward, plastering on a shaky smile. We've actually been sharing ideas on sustainable fashion, haven't we, Sophie? I was just telling Daddy about some similar concepts. Madame Leroux cut her off with a look that could freeze fire. Indeed, she said coolly, her gaze sweeping over Victoria before dismissing her entirely. It's heartening when the industry recognises true value when they see it. She then turned back to Mr. Blackwood. William, your daughter has shown quite an interest in Sophie's work. Perhaps a bit too much interest, according to the documentation I've received. She held up her phone, displaying some of the same screenshots I'd collected. The International Design Council takes plagiarism very seriously, as do I. Mr. Blackwood stepped back as if struck, his face pale. Victoria's eyes widened in panic. Madame Leroux had just publicly acknowledged me, elevated me, and subtly but devastatingly threatened the Blackwood Empire with a plagiarism scandal in one smooth, calculated strike. The twist wasn't just the dress. It was my entire life, rearranged and revealed. The rest of the gala passed in a blur of congratulations, curious glances, and whispered speculation. Afterward, instead of the planned, exclusive after-party Victoria had arranged, the real celebration shifted. Word got out that Madame Leroux and her circle were hosting a private showcase of my full collection at her penthouse suite. Suddenly, everyone who mattered in the fashion world was clamouring for an invitation. Victoria found me by the coat check as I was preparing to leave. Her makeup was smudged, tears threatening to spill over. The crimson silk dress now looked rumpled and sad. "Sophie," she choked out, "I am so sorry. For everything. For stealing your designs, for the dress sabotage plan, for all of it. I was awful, jealous. Please, can you forgive me?" Her apology felt desperate, triggered not by genuine remorse, perhaps, but by the sudden drastic shift in our fortunes. I looked at her, the woman who had made my previous life a misery, and felt tired. "I hear you, Victoria," I said quietly. Before I could say more, her father appeared, his face arranged in a mask of calm control, despite the scandal brewing. "Sophie, darling," he rushed forward, hand extended for a businesslike shake. "My talented discovery. I always knew you had it in you. Even when I was pushing Victoria's collection, I just wanted to see if you could rise to the challenge. I'd like to offer you your own line under the Blackwood label immediately." I instinctively stepped back, declining his handshake. His words rang hollow, false. All those months of dismissals, of stolen designs, of calculated exclusion, they couldn't be erased by this sudden change of tune. My response was simple, quiet, but firm. No, just no. Not angry, not accusatory, just a statement of fact. I did not accept his rewriting of history. His smile faltered, confusion and hurt flickering in his eyes, before hardening into resentment. Harrison cornered me next near the exit. "Sophie, about that collaboration Madame Leroux mentioned, it's an amazing opportunity, but I need to tell you something. I knew about Victoria's plagiarism. I was going to warn you, but I was worried about my investment in Blackwood. I'm sorry, I was a coward." I listened calmly. "Thank you for your honesty, Harrison," I said, my voice neutral. "I appreciate the apology." I paused, then added, "I'll be thinking carefully about the kind of partnerships I want to invest in as I move forward." His face fell, understanding the implication. The door to easy forgiveness, to our potential relationship, was closed. 2 years melted away like morning fog. I stood on the balcony of my Paris atelier, overlooking the Seine. It wasn't just my studio, but the headquarters of Lynn Biomimetic, my own label, born from that golden dress and nurtured by Madame Leroux's mentorship. The air, crisp and fresh, carried the scent of spring blooms from the window boxes below. A gentle breeze fluttered the pages of the business proposal I was reviewing, the launch plan for a sustainable fashion incubator for young designers from underprivileged backgrounds. Madame Leroux had not only championed my artistic vision, but had encouraged me to build something that would change the industry from within. A company that valued innovation, sustainability, and ethical practices alongside beauty and design. An invitation arrived with the morning's mail. The embossed card was from Blackwood Fashion House, announcing their annual gala under new management. Victoria had left the family business after the plagiarism scandal. According to industry gossip, she'd found her own path in costume design for independent films, discovering a creative voice that was truly hers. There was a handwritten note attached. "Found my own way finally. Thank you for the hard lesson. Would be honoured if you attended. Victoria." No grovelling, no demands. Just an acknowledgement and a tentative olive branch. I tucked it away, feeling a surprising sense of closure. She was no longer living in my shadow because I was no longer casting one over her. We had both found our own light. Later, I called Harrison. Our relationship, cautious at first after the gala revelations, had evolved. He'd left Blackwood to start an ethical investment fund for sustainable fashion ventures, and we'd reconnected when he approached me for advice. Now, we were exploring something new, a relationship built on mutual respect rather than power dynamics. We finalised plans for his upcoming visit. We were celebrating the launch of my new collection together next month, exploring the vintage textile markets of Paris. As the sun began to dip toward the horizon, painting the sky in fiery shades of orange and gold, I walked along the Seine. The water reflected the last light of day, shimmering like liquid gold, a reminder of the dress that changed everything. My assistant, a young designer I'd discovered from the same community college I'd once attended, joined me. We talked business for a few minutes, the details of sustainable supply chains mingling with the sounds of the city. Then she paused, looking at the peaceful flow of the river. "Do you ever regret it, Sophie?" she asked quietly. "Any of it? The way you handled everything after that night?" I followed her gaze to the water, a perfect flowing ribbon of light and shadow. I thought of the anger, the hurt, the elaborate plans for revenge, and I thought of where I was now. The peace, the purpose, the unexpected joy. The gold dress, a symbol of defiance and transformation, now hung in the Museum of Modern Fashion, part of a special exhibition on revolutionary textiles. I'd even designed an entire collection inspired by it, titled Phoenix, pieces that seemed to capture light and transform it into something more. "I regret nothing," I replied, my voice clear and steady. "Sometimes the most beautiful things, the truest things, can only emerge after a complete transformation, after everything burns away and you have to rebuild from the ashes." My phone chimed softly with a notification confirming the final details for tomorrow's presentation to a major sustainability initiative. I smiled. The past was the past. Revenge felt like a distant, faded photograph. I didn't need it anymore. I had something infinitely better, a future, a life that was finally, authentically my own. As the last golden light played across the surface of the Seine, I closed my eyes, breathing in the sweet Paris air, feeling a profound sense of peace that my previous life, and even the turbulent path of my rebirth, had never allowed. This was real. This was mine. And it was more golden than any dress could ever be. Death gave me a second chance, I whispered to myself. But I gave myself a new life.